It's happening. All right.
Yay!
Yeah. All right. So we can get started. So welcome everyone who's hopping on. My name's Janelle, and this is our Wellness Wednesday event with Mindful Nurses. And we are hosting these every Wednesday, supporting nurses' mental health and well-being through holistic wellness and self-care practices. And we've been doing these sessions for about a year now, and it's really great to have everyone joining and building this community, and inspiring to see all of the cool holistic work nurses are doing, and bringing in other holistic wellness practitioners as well to support nurses. And I'm really excited today to have Minerva with us. Minerva and I go back a decade. Was it a decade ago? We worked together in international health, humanitarian aid work, refugee health. We almost moved to South Sudan together.
Oh my God, we so totally did. I forgot. Oh my God, we almost really did move to South Sudan together.
We almost moved to Africa together. We worked together.
Yeah, we were really tired of the office life.
Yeah.
Wow, that was so many
yeah.
lifetimes ago.
So many lifetimes, yeah. And now,
yeah. We have a lot of, Janelle and I have very many good memories together. Oh no, I'm frozen. Is it me?
sorry about that. My internet is cutting in and out, but it was me.
I'm always like, is it me? Is it my internet? Is it my computer? Is it Zoom? Is it Mercury?
I know. Oh my gosh. Working online is like a whole nother thing, especially when you're based in Bali or somewhere like this. So. But we'll roll with it. But yeah, I was just saying thank you so much for coming. And it's really cool to have you sharing about Ayurvedic nutrition and Ayurvedic wisdom with us, because we've talked a little bit in the group about plant-based eating and nutrition, but we haven't looked into the Ayurvedic perspective. So it's really cool to have you sharing that with us today. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and to just, share a little bit of what I know, and something that I'm just so deeply passionate about, and a wisdom system that can feel so simple, and because it's so intuitive, and humbling because it's just kind of always on point.
Yeah. So can you share with us a little bit about like your history or your story, how you got into Ayurveda, and where you began?
My first introduction into Ayurvedic medicine and wisdom was actually back in 2013 when I was doing my 200-hour yoga teacher training. And, I got a little tidbit in the 200-hour, but then where I did my training, they were also offering like a 50-hour advanced training. And so I took that because I just really fell in love with it. And then eventually, gosh, we're in 2021. So some years back, I don't remember when, but at some point, years ago, after 2013, I think it was 2017, I enrolled to become a certified Ayurvedic wellness counselor. So it's a year-long program, and I did that with the Kerala Ayurvedic Institute in the Bay Area in California. You know, and yeah, and so I've been practicing as an Ayurvedic wellness counselor since then. And you know, I just really love to share, and yeah, so I'm excited. So let's talk.
Let's share. That's cool. Yeah, so you've been doing this for a while. I've been seeing you've been hosting different events around Ayurveda, and you do one-on-one counseling with it as well. So yeah, where should we begin? I don't know if you want to give us the background of the history of Ayurveda or where it comes from. Like,
I mean, it's an Indian science. It's well over 2,000 years old. But I guess I can share that. Yeah, so some of the workshops and stuff that I do are specifically around nutrition and food, and eating to heal, as I like to say, because in the eyes of Ayurveda, food is medicine, and it is our first point of medicine. It's our first point of taking care of ourselves. Just to kind of maybe take a step back, is that the beautiful thing about Ayurvedic science is that it looks at the person as a whole entity, right? So, mind, body, spirit, emotions, like everything impacts everything. So it's not a symptom-based approach to wellness, and it is scientific, like tested, and tried out. So, and also this wisdom system comes from the perspective of preventative, right? So it looks at us as whole beings that are healthy, and it looks at teaching us ways of living in alignment with what's best for us to keep us in equilibrium. And that looks different for every single person because we're all unique individuals. And if we understand what that is, and if we understand like how to kind of live in this balance, right, between extremes, that we can prevent diseases. So I really find that really beautiful about it all. And as far as looking at the food, it is our first point of medicine, and the workshops that I do are around just understanding that aspect of it. And I think like I can Ayurveda, there's the Panchamahabhutas, the 5 great elements of which everything in the world is comprised of, right? So Pancha means 5, right? Maha means great, right? Bhuta means elements. So you have space, air, fire, water, and earth. And those 5 elements, can be found in everything, right? Including us. And those 5 elements combined into what they call the 3 doshas, right? Which the 3 doshas, and which is what is most popular. So when people who are, who have heard of Ayurveda, they normally hear of the 3 doshas, which is vata, pitta, kapha. Vata being the elements of space and air, pitta being the elements of water and fire, and kapha being the elements of water, and earth.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the three main principal energies in Ayurveda. So vata being the energy of movement, pitta is the energy of transformation, and kapha is the glue energy. And so it on some levels it's very simple, right? Like if you know, so everyone has all three doshas in them, right? Because again, we're made up of all five elements, so we're going to have the different doshas and combinations within us. But what's unique is that the way that those three doshas show up in our body is different for everyone. And so if we understand our own internal makeup, right, then we can learn how to find that counterbalance internally and externally, right? So, there's the way that you look at the day is broken up into, doshic elements. So the seasons are broken up into doshic elements, right? So, so for example, the hours between 10 and 2 are pitta time. So 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. is pitta time. And then 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. is also pitta time, right? And, again, this like internal, external concept of like, if we look at the world between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., that's when the sun is at its peak, right? So optimal suntan time, 10 a.m. 2 p.m. Right? So when you think about the sun is our pitta. It is our external fire. It's our transformational energy, right? And so internally, right, our internal fire, which is our agni, our digestive, right, our digestive system, is at its peak as well. So that's why lunch, for example, right, should be the biggest meal that we eat, right? And also between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., again, our internal fire is at its peak, but we should be asleep so that our digestive system is using that internal heat, right, to digest our day, so that it's not using that energy to actually have us, maneuvering around in the world, but it's actually digesting our day. So it's digesting our thoughts, our food, our emotions, everything that we took in through the senses, our eyes, our ears, our skin, our nose, our mouth, right? So that when we wake up in the morning, it's like it's a reset, right? And if you're up, for example, past 10 o'clock, right? The closer you get to midnight, you enter the phenomenon of wanting the midnight munchies. Right? And it's because, right, like our internal fire is, increasing. So it's kind of like, I'm hungry, right? Which is, but again, instead of being awake to consume food, we should be asleep so that it can consume the day, right? Kind of just went all over the place. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's so much rich information. I've already learned so much about Ayurveda. Like you said, I've kind of been one of those who's like, oh yeah, I know about vata, pitta, kapha, like the three doshas, but I never knew that there was so much more background to the five elements, and also just I had also just seen myself as like, oh, I'm vata, so I'm just this. And so it's also interesting to recognize that we all have all parts of those, and also the different times of day related to it. It's interesting like how much that overlaps with Chinese medicine and these different ancient wisdom, wellness wisdom.
Yeah, earth-based practices.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's very much of, these earth-based practices, it's just like observing the earth and like collecting the wisdom, right? So everything that we need to know, everything that we need is, if we just pay attention, right? The earth is is teaching us. It's trying to teach us, and it provides for us, right? So, there's, just to elaborate even more on the three doshas, right? Like increases like, and the opposite is where you find that equilibrium balance, right? So if you understand your internal makeup, right, and you have a basic understanding of the times of the day, and you have a basic understanding of the seasons, then you can kind of begin to make small adjustments to kind of help yourself stay in that equilibrium that is true for you, right? So, you very much, I can say this because I know you, right? And I've known you for over a decade. You're very much vata, right? But that doesn't mean that that's the only thing that you are, right? You also have pitta, and you also have kapha in you, right? It's just that even though Ayurveda doesn't look at it this way, I think like for the Western mind, it's helpful to kind of put it into some sort of tangible way of understanding. So let's say you as a person are 100%, right? So, you would be, potentially, just having one doshic constitution that's the majority. Most people are dual doshic, so they'll have two that are in a majority. Very, very few people are tridoshic, meaning they have all three in equal parts. But let's say for you, for example, this is just an example. Out of that 100%, you are 70% vata, and then 30% pitta, no, 20% pitta, and then 10% kapha, for example, right? Then like it would just be a matter of like learning, what foods are good for vata, what foods aggravate vata, right? And like in which seasons you need to be extra careful that that your vata doesn't go into overdrive, and in which seasons it's are really nourishing for vata, right? So and so just kind of like playing with that balance, and the thing with when it comes to the food is that if you just look to like what is in season, and I know it's a little bit hard because you go to the supermarket and everything's in season all the time, but and also just like recognizing that like having access to fresh food, and there's a lot of political discussion around that, right? But just on the basis of looking at this like from the wisdom of Ayurveda, if you look at what the earth provides for you within that season, that's mainly what you need to be eating to help keep yourself from not going like this on the scales, right? And also just understanding that there is just like a natural flux that happens, right, on the constant. So like for example, experiencing hunger, that's an imbalance, right? And you just bring yourself back by eating. Thirst is considered an imbalance, but you drink something and you come back to your center. So it's not to say that like an imbalance is like it's not a judgment thing, but it does become a health issue when it's outside of the natural fluctuations that we experience on a daily basis, right? For example, I don't know, acid reflux, right? That's like you're eating too many spicy things. One reason why, right? And it might be because your constitution is dominant pitta, meaning you already naturally have a lot of fire in you, so you don't need to be adding more fire, because all you're doing, you're literally burning yourself up, from the inside.
Mm.
And your body's like, yo, stop, I can't take it. And you're like spitting fire out your mouth. Because you got all this fire going on the inside.
Are you Pitta? Are you a little bit Pitta?
Huh?
Is that you? Are you Pitta?
I'm Pitta Vata, yeah.
Vata, yeah, mixture. Yeah.
Yeah, so like for example, like the summer is Pitta season, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's very hot. And what's in season in the summer? A lot of fruits that have water. Right. Watermelon, melons, like all these melons, all grapes, like all these fruits that provide us, with the water that we need to kind of cool down. But then also when you look at those fruits, their elemental breakdown is sweet. And sweet taste is good for Pitta.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, that was interesting. I saw you said something about taste can guide us in the Ayurvedic spectrum. Yeah, I was curious about that.
There's so there's 6 tastes. There's the sweet, sour, salty, bitter, astringent, and pungent.
Okay.
Those are the 6 tastes. And for each dosha, there are 3 tastes. This is not 3. This is 3. There are 3 tastes that help to that nourish it, and then there are 3 tastes that deplete it. Okay. So remember that like increases like. So we don't want those, right? We want the ones that are the opposite, because that's where we find the balance, right? So like for example, if you're a vata constitution, which means you already naturally have a lot more air and space within you, which means in your mental capacity too, you have more air and space. And you're always eating foods that are light and airy, right? All you're doing is just adding more air and space into you, right? So I remember, and let's say, for example, it's the fall, which is vata season, right? Because there's so much air outside. So you're naturally a lot of air. There's a lot of air outside, and all you're doing is eating airy foods. Where are you going to be? You're going to be in the clouds. You're going to... Janelle! Hello? Right? Yeah. And I mean, and it happens to me too, right? And so, there's a joke I have with some friends that, when I'm feeling a little too spacey, of being like, tie some sweet potatoes around my waist, please. Like, ground me down, right? So the balance for that would be like root vegetables, right? Things that are hearty and that are the sweet taste, right? So even like rice and grains, not sweet as in like processed sugar, right? But like sweet that we find in food. So to kind of, because they ground us, into the earth. So, but then also when you think about the fall season, like what are some foods that are in season for the fall?
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Sweet
Root
potatoes,
vegetables.
pumpkins, root vegetables, right?
Yeah.
So what? There was something else. Yeah, so that's what I mean. So there are 3 tastes that like nourish the dosha, and there are 3 that just kind of deplete it. Okay. All right. Interesting. Yeah. There's so on my website, I actually have there's one post, I don't remember what it's called, but it breaks down the 6 taste. With the details of all of it, if you want it. Yeah, that sounds super interesting. Yeah, and it's interesting how it's related both to the doshas and to the seasons. The time of day and the seasons also have this different pattern. So yeah, it's so complex and interesting, and also so simple too. Like I definitely feel that in my body if I eat root vegetables or like grounding things, that it's so good for me. Like yeah. What do you think about? I'm curious what you think about fasting for
people who are predominantly vata, or what does Ayurveda say about fasting in general? Because I've always felt like very like when I try to fast, I feel like exactly what you said. Like I just go to the clouds. Like I feel really ungrounded when I try fasting.
Yeah, well, my dear, you definitely should not.
Yeah.
So Ayurveda actually thinks that one really good thing to do is to do a cleanse at the juncture of the seasons, because the juncture of the seasons is when we're most susceptible to getting sick. So having a nice reset is a good time, but not with a fast, but more of something like a soup cleanse, right?
Okay.
Some will say like khichdi, and you know, I am of the school of the soup cleanse. Some people really like it though. But you know, you can do a simple like khichdi 3-day cleanse, or you know, I prefer soup cleanses. And you know, I've led different soup cleanses at the juncture of each season as well, and the soups change according to the season, right? So that's a good time to kind of do like an internal reset and a pause, and kind of just help your body for the transition. You know, and Ayurveda isn't, you know, a vegan science. It's not a vegan way of life, right? The cow is a sacred animal, right? And you know, ghee, which is made from butter, is, you know, a big source of medicine, right? And also a cooking ingredient, right? In a lot of the meals. So, you know, what you eat, again, is dependent on your own body and your own body constitution. So, actually, I don't remember off the top of my head. I have it written down in my notes somewhere, but each dosha can tolerate different forms of diets, right? And you know, some do better as a vegetarian. Some do better, you know, eating meats and certain kind of meats. You know, so some are okay, and some actually kind of are not you know, conducive to the wellness, depending on your doshic makeup, right? One other thing I wanted to say too is like you can be like vata, like your prakriti, so your makeup, your genetic doshic makeup, could be like, for example, you know, mainly vata, but you can experience an imbalance in any of the other ones as well, right? So you can have a kapha imbalance, you can have a pitta imbalance, even if those aren't your dominant doshas, right? Any one of our doshas can become out of balance, and in fact, when one is out of balance, it's normally not the only one. You know, and depending on the level of, like, you know, what's going on, you know, it might just be all things that are, you know, kind of too much or too little, and so you know, we're just not operating at our optimal self, if that makes sense.
Totally. And when you talk about the doshas being out of balance, I'm curious if they go out of balance or can be brought back into balance primarily through food in Ayurveda, or is there other practices or, you know, things in our life that could bring our doshas out of balance or bring us back into balance?
Yeah, I mean, I think like it's not just, yes, it can be brought back with food, and you know, it also just depends.
Right.
I feel like a lot of things, a lot of the answer is like it depends,
Right.
because it depends like what's going on. It depends on the severity of what's going on. You know, it could be easily, you know, remedied by developing a different relationship to your food and how you engage, you know, in your meals and you know, the rituals and routines around that. And then sometimes you need, you know, herbal remedies or other things that Ayurveda does. You know, like, you know, aside from medicines, different kinds of purges and massages and which I'm not trained to do. So
Yeah. Yeah, there's so
yeah.
many practices. Yeah, cool. Wow, it's such a rich, interesting way to look at what we eat, and I really appreciate how it's so connected to our natural rhythms and the rhythms of nature and day and season and earth. And that's your kind of your path, right, with roots healing. You want to talk a little bit about your passion with that and what you're sharing with roots healing? Yeah.
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm kind of at a juncture myself with feeling in terms of trying to secure its forever home with opening up a retreat center in the Dominican Republic.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
yeah, and you know, it's an elaborate vision that I've held in my heart for many years, and you know, it's at a point where it's becoming real. And I actually have a GoFundMe set up to try to collect donations to secure the land and build this center. But you know, part of this center is not only, you know, being able to host retreats and hold workshops and, you know, hold yoga classes and all that stuff for myself and, you know, my community of folks, but also a piece that's really important for me in that aspect, in that dream, in that vision, in that center is having the farm connected to it as well, right? And being able to have farm to table, you know, meals served for everyone that works there and staying there and doing it from this lens of Ayurveda, right? Of being able to, you know, be able to show people what it means to have a different relationship with our food, right? And see our food as our medicine and you know, just kind of break away from a lot of the narratives that we've been taught, that we've internalized around, you know, what healthy means, you know, you know, what our ideal body looks like, and you know, that kind of stuff. Because when you understand the different doshas, then you understand that everybody is meant to be different, right? And you know, for example, vatas are long and lean, right? And kaphas are more curvy and, you know, and thicker, because, you know, they're the glue energy, they're the earth energy, right? And they're the ones, you know, who have the nice, shiny, supple skin, because their primary elements are earth and water, you know, and they have the, you know, thick, luscious, shiny hair, you know, and they don't have to put lotion on. Meanwhile, you take a vata and you know, they're like sandpaper, right? And you have your pittas who are like, you know, more of like the, you know, how would you say it? Like a athletic build, you know, like the medium, I don't know how you like, right? And so like just appreciating, right? Appreciating the different ways in which like our bodies are meant to be, because we are made up of the different elements, right? And so then understanding that the way in which we eat is going to be different, right? Like kaphas could skip breakfast. They don't need breakfast, right? Whereas a pitta, for example, if you don't feed them, the moment they get hungry, like, watch out, world. Like, you know, like if you look up hangry in the dictionary, you can just put a picture of someone who is primarily pitta. Right? And you're just like, feed the pitta. Right? You know, and so being able to also just show like how it's not complicated to live in a household with different constitutions and be able to make one meal that everybody can eat from, but it's eaten in different ways so that everyone is eating in a way that is best for them, right? So like, for example, you know, you want all 6 tastes, right, in every single meal. But again, like I said, right, there's 3 tastes that are nourishing and 3 tastes that are depleting. So if someone's kapha, you know, they're gonna look at what's there and say like, I'm gonna have more of the kale and less of the sweet potato. Whereas the vata person would be like, I need more of the sweet potato and less of the kale, right? And the pitta is like, give me the kale and give me the pitta and the sweet potatoes. Right? And so like, you know, being able to also just, you know, be able to say like, look, like you can make your meals, you know, and then just learn like how to just nourish yourself, right? And nourish everyone all together. So you know, that's one important aspect of this retreat center for me is to be able to integrate this Ayurvedic wisdom and break it down and make it simple, because you know, it can seem complicated and the nuances and it's, you know, it's a brilliant science, but also I really firmly believe that if you just kind of understand the basics, then you know, you can do a pretty good job of living in alignment with, you know, what's good and best for you and your body, your type.
Yeah. Yeah, I really appreciate that, of just like bringing it back to all of this holistic wellness stuff that we share here is really all about that, about like mindfulness, about ourselves and our own bodies, and being just aware and observing what we need. And that really brings the power back within us, instead of looking outside to different medical models or medicines or whatever it is, to have a one size fits all fix or solution. Like, really have the power in ourselves to listen to ourselves and to nurture ourselves in our own unique way. So yeah, I really appreciate that about what you're sharing. And it's also really cool, the larger vision you have of this center, of like not only the individual health, but the community health, and supporting all of those things together. So yeah, really, really cool. I'm really excited. We'll have to post your GoFundMe campaign with this recording, and would love to promote what you're doing. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's wild, but here I am.
Yeah. Maybe you can host a retreat for nurses someday.
Oh, I
That's
would
part
love
of our
that.
vision too, is
Yes,
once people
please.
start coming back out into the world, it would be wonderful to do an in-person retreat, and it'd be cool to collaborate with you and come down.
Yes, please, please. You know,
Yeah.
I'm speaking in the affirmative. So, you know, once the center is open,
Yes.
you know, I would love to be able to host a retreat for the nurses and,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and just, you know, being able to carve time out for folks to, you know, just understand the value of reconnecting on all levels, right? So taking care of your body through your food, taking care of your body through, you know, movement, taking care of your mental space, your heart space, your psyche, your spirit, right? Through earth medicine and it's all of that. So come on down once it's open.
Yeah. And nature too, the beautiful nature in the DR. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful location. It's actually the municipality that it's located in is called Paraíso, which means paradise.
Oh wow,
And it
beautiful.
really does feel like paradise down there.
Oh.
It really does. So, you know, I'm ready. I'm ready to have
Yeah.
it and to hold and host and all the good things.
Mm. So cool. Well, I'm so happy to see you and so happy to see you sharing your medicine with the world and your own unique, beautiful, authentic way. And so fun to reconnect with you and have you share it with our community of nurses. And it's exciting to have the teacher coming down there. Yeah, it's really great to have you. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Yeah. So I guess we can wrap up, but we'll be posting this on our website with Minerva's contact for anyone who's listening in and wants to do more one-on-one work in Ayurveda practices or support the retreat center. We'll be posting all the information. And thank you everyone who's listening. We'll be doing these every week. Next week we have a session on journaling and writing and how we can use writing to connect more with ourselves and become more mindful of our emotions. Yeah, all good things. So thank you for everyone for joining, and thanks Minerva again for sharing with us today.
Thank you for having me. Good night.
Bye. Have a good night.
Good night.